What if success wasn't something you had to chase? What if peace wasn't found at the finish line, but in the pauses between each breath? And what if the life you're rushing to build is waiting quietly for you to finally slow down? In a world addicted to speed, noise, and constant achievement, stillness has become a forgotten virtue. We measure our worth by how much we do, how fast we move, how loud we can shout. But the ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, taught something radically different. That true strength comes not from chasing, but from choosing. That wisdom begins the moment we stop reacting and start remembering who we are. This is not a self-help formula. It's not a hack, a shortcut, or a hustle. It's a return to yourself, to what truly matters, to the quiet power you were born with, but forgot how to hear. This is the Still Path, a journey through 8 deep lessons in Stoic thought and personal reflection. Each one a call to stop running, start listening, and rediscover the strength of simply being. You're not here to perform. You're here to awaken. And it begins right now. Chapter 1. The Pursuit That Never Ends. There is a peculiar affliction of the modern soul. We are always in motion, yet never arriving. We run, we strive, we accumulate, but ask someone why, and the answer is often hollow. To be successful, they say. But peel back the layers, and what we uncover is a fragile house built on shifting sands. Fear of inadequacy, need for recognition, anxiety masked as ambition. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Self-indulgence means tying it to the things that happen to you. But sanity means tying it to your own actions." In these few lines lies the Stoic answer to the disease of endless striving. Anchor yourself not in outcome, but in your own reasoned choice, your virtue. But that is easier said than lived. I know this, because for many years I was not grounded in virtue. I was tethered to the chase. It felt noble at first. Building, creating, striving. What could be more purposeful? But soon I discovered, the pursuit of success is a mirage. When you think you've reached it, the horizon shifts. This chapter is for those who wake up tired, not just in body but in soul. For those who lie awake at night wondering, is this all there is? For those who have achieved much and yet feel the strange ache of something missing. And it is for those who have not yet arrived anywhere, but are exhausted from running anyway. We begin with a simple confession. We chase success because we are afraid of stillness. Success promises noise. It promises applause, metrics, titles, affirmation. And all that noise keeps us from having to hear the quiet question beneath it all. Who am I without all this? The Roman Stoic Seneca warned us long ago, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. He spoke of men who are endlessly occupied but do not live. Their time is not their own. Their attention is scattered like seeds in a storm. They are busy but not wise. Active but not free. In today's world, busyness is currency. It becomes a false sign of worth. We wear our burnout like a badge. But the Stoics would look upon our schedules and ask, not with judgment but with sincere concern, to what end are you so busy? When I began my first business, I worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. I glorified it. My friends admired it. Social media celebrated it. But inside I was unraveling. I wasn't present for my children. I wasn't present with my thoughts. I wasn't even present with the work. I was simply reacting, responding, chasing. Epictetus reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Yet the modern idea of success is rooted almost entirely in what is not in our control: market trends, customer opinions, followers, fame. The Stoic way demands a radical reorientation. You must shift from external validation to internal values, from chasing what sparkles to living what is steady. There is a story told of Cato the Younger, one of the great Roman Stoics. While other senators wore elaborate robes and indulged in banquets, Cato walked barefoot in simple garb, speaking only when needed, living as if all eyes were watching, even when none were. He didn't chase popularity, and yet his character was so magnetic that even his enemies respected him. He had ceased chasing and become immovable. Today we lack immovability. We bend toward trends, compromise ourselves for clout, hustle for an image we don't even like. And in doing so, we lose the quiet power of stillness. So what happens when you stop chasing success? The first thing is withdrawal. You feel disoriented, restless. You feel like a limb is missing because your identity was wrapped in the running. The quiet terrifies you. But then, if you can endure the silence, something ancient awakens, something unshakable. You begin to hear your own thoughts, not the noise of the world. You begin to act not for approval, but for principle. You begin to remember that you were not made to perform, but to live. And that is where our Stoic journey begins, not with the next win, but with a full stop, a breath. Question: if I stopped chasing, would I still be whole? In the next chapter, we will explore the fragile identities we construct from our achievements, and what remains when those identities fall away. Chapter 2: The Mask of Achievement. We spend years, sometimes decades, building an identity out of effort. We attach our worth to what we do, what we earn, how we're perceived. We take on titles, roles, expectations. And slowly, imperceptibly, those roles become masks. We don't just run businesses, we become entrepreneurs. We don't just work out, we become athletes. We don't just speak, we become influencers. And as the mask hardens, we forget our face beneath. Marcus Aurelius warned himself daily, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors. Be indifferent to what makes no difference." He saw what we still struggle with. When our sense of self is built on comparison and impression, we will always be unstable. I remember the day my business hit a major milestone, an external signal that I had made it. But instead of elation, I felt hollow. I should have celebrated. I should have felt proud. But the joy was fleeting, and in its place came a quiet terror. Who am I now that I've reached this? I realized I wasn't addicted to progress. I was addicted to the identity of a man who hadn't yet arrived. The building gave me purpose. The mask was who I had become. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." I craved the chase, not for the thing itself, but for what it said about me. I feared that stillness would expose the truth. I didn't know who I was without the striving. This is not unique to me. We all wear masks. Some are crafted from ambition, others from trauma. We become the dutiful son, the high achiever, the perfectionist. These masks are not lies, they're just incomplete truths. Useful once but suffocating now. Epictetus told his students, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." But we reverse this. We adorn ourselves first and hope that identity will follow. We dress for roles, not for truth. When you begin to remove the mask, you will feel exposed, vulnerable. There may be grief, because what you're letting go of is not just a label, it's the illusion of certainty. But that grief is necessary. For beneath the mask lies something more enduring, your essence. That part of you not shaped by trend or title, but by character. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the addiction to momentum, why we invent problems just to keep solving them, and how that cycle blinds us to the beauty of enough. Chapter 3: The Tyranny of the Dopamine Mind. There is a subtle slavery that few of us recognize. It wears no chains, no visible bonds, but it pulls the strings of our behavior with ruthless efficiency. It rewards us with little jolts of pleasure, not unlike a master tossing scraps to a loyal dog. It is the tyranny of the dopamine mind. Modern life is engineered for stimulation. Likes, comments, notifications, milestones, and underneath it all, a neurological cocktail that keeps us coming back for more. But long before neuroscience gave it a name, the Stoics warned us about it in different words: desire, craving, the need for more. Epictetus taught, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. Yet how can we eliminate what we've come to depend on? The buzz of checking your phone, the rush of praise, the thrill of a new goal. I remember in the early days of building my business, every email, every sale, every new follower gave me a spark. It felt good, earned even, but soon I noticed a problem. The spark faded faster each time. What thrilled me last week now felt ordinary. I needed more, a bigger win, a louder applause. And when that didn't come fast enough, I created new problems just so I could fix them. The chase wasn't about the goal anymore. It was about the hit. Seneca observed, if one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable. Dopamine doesn't care about your destination. It only wants movement. It pushes us to act regardless of whether that action is aligned with wisdom, purpose, or peace. It confuses motion for meaning. The Stoics were not against action, but they were suspicious of compulsion. They urged us to examine why we do what we do. Is it driven by logos, reason, virtue, or by impulse? Here's the trap. We believe we're being productive, but often we're just pacifying our restless minds. We mistake urgency for importance. We design to-do lists not to finish meaningful work, but to feel like we're accomplishing something. And when the list is done, we add more. The taskmaster in our heads is never satisfied. There's an ancient parable of King Midas, who wished everything he touched would turn to gold. At first it was glorious, but then he touched his food, then his daughter, and the blessing revealed itself to be a curse. Our modern Midas is dopamine. It rewards us for touching, acquiring, achieving, but leaves us unable to savor, to rest, to be. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with this himself. In Meditations he wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" That is the sword that cuts through the noise. Not, is this exciting? Not, will this gain me status? But, is this necessary? A Stoic practice to escape dopamine's grip is deliberate stillness. Not the absence of work, but the presence of willful pause. Sit without checking your phone. Walk without music. Work without switching tabs. Eat without screens. These moments are not empty. They are purification. The goal is not to eliminate all pleasure, but to master your relationship with it. To become the rider of your instincts, not the ridden. To engage with life not from compulsion, but from conscious command. There is a phrase from Epictetus that I return to often: no man is free who is not master of himself. Dopamine is a poor master. It demands more yet delivers less. It promises satisfaction then moves the target. So what's the alternative? What does life look like when you are no longer led by the carrot? It looks like stillness. It looks like fewer goals but more depth. Fewer tabs open but deeper focus. Fewer friends but richer conversations. Less applause but more authenticity. You become the kind of person who does things not to feel something, but because they are right. In our next chapter, we'll face the next revelation. What happens when you achieve your long-sought goal, and instead of joy you find emptiness? Chapter 4. Chasing Wind. When the goal is reached and emptiness remains, there is a kind of silence that success brings. A silence more disorienting than failure. Because when you fail, there is noise, plans to fix, problems to solve, blame to assign. But when you succeed, when the goal is reached, the numbers hit, the trophy won, there is only quiet. And if your identity was wrapped in the striving, that quiet can feel like death. Seneca once warned, "Our plans miscarry because they have no aim." When a man does not know what harbor he is making for, no wind is the right wind. But what of the man who reaches the harbor and realizes it wasn't what he truly wanted? I remember a moment of arrival. My business reached a peak I had dreamed of for years. Everything that was once aspiration became reality. And yet there I was, standing in the center of my dream life, unable to feel it. The applause felt distant. The joy I expected was hollow. I had reached the summit and found no view. This is not uncommon. Athletes speak of the post-Olympic depression. Authors feel numb after finishing the book. Entrepreneurs spiral after an exit. The Stoics understood why. The value was never in the outcome, it was in the virtue we cultivated along the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The danger of success is that it tricks us into thinking the outside event will complete the inside gap. But no achievement can close an existential void. Epictetus reminds us, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. The achievement wasn't empty. My opinion, my expectation that it would fulfill me, was flawed. And that's where the wind begins to chase itself. Because once you feel that emptiness, the natural impulse is to fill it again. A new goal, a new plan, a bigger chase. We become addicted to becoming, terrified of just being. We become wanderers in a storm of our own making. But the Stoics offer a different path, acceptance. Not resignation, but sober recognition. The realization that peace is not the reward at the end of striving. Peace is the result of choosing virtue now. Cato did not wait for political victory to practice principle. He embodied it daily in dress, in speech, in silence. Whether in defeat or success, he remained the same. He understood that greatness is not in achieving, but in aligning. So what do we do standing at the summit with no view? We breathe. We let go of the expectation that happiness lies over there. We ask, what is required of me in this moment? And we do that not for applause, not for legacy, but because it is right. When the goal is reached and emptiness remains, do not rush to the next thing. That emptiness is not failure, it is a doorway. It invites you inward into the part of yourself untouched by applause, untouched by numbers. It invites you to return to your inner citadel. For the Stoic, that is where life begins, not in achievement but in alignment. In the next chapter we will explore this place of return, the quiet center, the refuge beneath all striving, the strength that comes not from pushing but from presence. Chapter 5. The noise within, stillness as strength. The loudest noise we face isn't from the outside world. It's from within. It's the endless chatter of what we must do next, what we haven't done yet, what others might think, what the future might bring. It's the inner critic, the anxious planner, the performer rehearsing 1,000 lives in a single moment. This noise, this internal storm, is what truly exhausts us. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But how many of us can access that retreat? How many of us have ever truly sat still, not in idleness but in intention? When we strip away the accolades, the calendars, the pressure to be somebody, what remains is something deeper, quieter, stronger. That stillness is not emptiness, it is the presence of essence. It is where we meet our real self. Stillness is not just the absence of noise. It is the capacity to remain rooted when the world shakes. It is the pause before the reaction, the breath before the battle, the clarity before the choice. Seneca reminds us, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And what is stillness, if not the courage to face adversity without panic? When you are still, you are dangerous, not because you are passive, but because you are not reactive. You become immovable, like a cliff against crashing waves. I used to fear silence. I'd reach for distraction the way a drowning man gasps for air. Music, podcasts, messages, goals. I needed motion to feel alive. But all I was doing, I was running. Running from the deep quiet that might reveal who I truly was. Stillness forced me to see the truth, that I was exhausted not by effort, but by internal resistance. That my worth was not in what I produced, but in how I faced the moment. A Stoic does not fear stillness. He seeks it. For in the silence he can finally hear the voice of reason, not ego. He can finally see the difference between impulse and principle. Try this. Once a day, sit in silence. No phone, no goals, just you and your breath. Let the mind wander, and then let it return, like training a wild horse, with patience, with kindness. At first, the noise may grow louder. That's okay. You're not losing ground, you're becoming aware of what's always been there. But over time, the mind begins to soften. The storm begins to slow. And in its place, a quiet strength rises. Stillness is not retreat. It is power under control. It is the inner citadel Marcus spoke of. It is what allows you to move through the world with grace, while remaining unmoved by its chaos. And in a society that rewards the loudest voice, the busiest schedule, and the most visible hustle, your stillness becomes a rebellion. A declaration, I am not what I chase. I am what I choose to be. In the next chapter, we'll explore how surrender, far from weakness, can become a supreme act of wisdom. Chapter 6, Letting the Logos Lead, When Faith Replaces Force. In a world obsessed with control, we often mistake force for strength. We push, we pressure, we plan. We attempt to bend life to our will, as if outcomes can be dominated through sheer effort. But the Stoics understood something deeper, older, more enduring. Life is not meant to be conquered. It is meant to be cooperated with. They called this cooperation with nature the Logos, a divine rational order that underlies all things. To live in harmony with the Logos is to act with integrity, but without attachment. To serve what is right, not what is guaranteed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Live in accordance with nature." And nature as he saw it was not chaos. It was order, it was balance, it was intelligence greater than our own. When we fight what is, we fracture. When we align, we find peace even in loss. There was a time when I resisted everything that didn't go to plan. A delayed project? Rage. A failed partnership? Despair. A change in the algorithm? Panic. I lived as though I could outwit reality, but I couldn't. And every time I tried, I only added a second suffering to the first. Epictetus was firm. Some things are up to us and some things are not. Wisdom begins when we make peace with that distinction. To act where we have power. To release where we do not. Letting the logos lead is not laziness. It is not apathy. It is fierce participation coupled with humility. You do your part. You give your all. But you do not cling to the outcome. Cato did this when he stood alone in the Senate opposing Caesar. He knew he would lose. But he also knew that victory was not the measure of virtue. He acted in accordance with truth, not because it would succeed, but because it was right. What if we lived this way? What if our measure was not did it work, but was it wise? Not did I win, but was I just? Seneca reminds us, he is most powerful who has power over himself. And what greater power is there than the ability to act nobly and let go? Faith in this context is not blind belief. It is radical trust. Trust that nature is unfolding as it must. That your part is to play your role, well, honorably, wholeheartedly, and then release the rest. Try this practice. When something you care about doesn't go your way, pause. Ask, did I act from my highest principles? Did I do what was in my control? If yes, then let it be. Let the river flow. You are not the current. You are the oarsman. Your task is direction, not destination. Letting the logos lead means learning to surrender not in defeat, but in wisdom. It is what allows the Stoic to remain steady when others shake. To accept what is while still serving what could be better. In our next chapter, we'll explore what it truly means to stop performing, to drop the act, and to become, again, simply a human being. Chapter 7, Becoming a Human Being Again. Somewhere along the way we stopped being, and we started performing. We became roles, titles, achievements. We chased metrics, followers, promotions, praise, each one a brick in the illusion we called identity. But beneath the performance, beneath the hustle, beneath the need to prove, something older still remains. A presence, a quiet, a self that simply is. A human being, not a human doing. The Stoics never taught us to abandon life. They taught us to live it rightly. And to live rightly, we must first remember what we are. Epictetus said, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." But how can we know who we are when we never stop pretending? How can we remember our essence when we're constantly adapting to gain approval, attention, or applause? The truth is, the deeper we entangle ourselves in the image, the more distant we become from the soul. I once met a man who had made it. Wealth, status, prestige, he had the admiration of millions. But his voice trembled when he said to me, "I don't know who I am without the work." He wasn't talking about laziness. He was talking about loss of self, because the role had consumed the man. We become so skilled at being what the world wants, we forget to ask, what does my soul need? Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Be content to seem what you really are." But this is hard in a world that rewards illusion. It takes immense strength to remove the mask. Not out of rebellion, but out of truth. To become a human being again is to re-enter life unarmored. To let go of the compulsive need to impress. To let silence speak louder than status. To sit by a tree, to breathe without urgency, to look someone in the eye and not think of your resume, but of your shared humanity. Seneca reminds us, "A great man is he who does not lose his child's heart." That child never cared for metrics. He cared for wonder, for play, for the simple act of being alive. To return to your being is not regression, it is restoration. It is becoming honest again, present again, soft without being weak, clear without being cruel. Here's a practice. Once a week, do something without utility, not for likes, not for goals, not even for growth, just for joy, just to be. Walk barefoot on grass, write without posting it, read poetry out loud to no one. Let the doing pause and watch what arises, because underneath it all, you are still there. You were never the achievements. You were never the image. You were never the mask. You are the quiet behind the noise, the breath before the ambition, the presence that needs nothing to prove itself. In our final chapter, we'll talk about the wisdom of waiting, of not rushing forward, but letting the next call rise from stillness, not desperation. Chapter 8. The Wisdom of Waiting. In a world that glorifies speed, to wait is to rebel. We are told, hurry up, do more, don't fall behind. There's always something to achieve, something to fix, someone to become. But the Stoics, men of immense inner strength, understood that not everything is to be chased. Some things are to be received. Epictetus taught, "No great thing is created suddenly. There must be time. Give your best and let time do the rest." But waiting is hard. Waiting means surrendering our illusion of control. Waiting means being misunderstood, being still when others run. It means saying no to the world's tempo so we can rediscover our own. To wait wisely is not to do nothing, it is to prepare the soul. Like a field that rests after harvest, not because it is weak, but because it is wise. Because even soil must be still to grow again. I used to fear waiting. I feared the silence. I feared being forgotten. But I have since learned, there is a kind of growth that only happens in the pause. There is a kind of clarity that only appears after the noise dies down. Marcus Aurelius asked himself daily, "Am I afraid of death because I won't be able to do this anymore?" He didn't mean activity. He meant the sacred act of reflection, of truth-telling, of watching himself honestly. You see, waiting is what transforms action from impulse to intention. It's what allows meaning to rise rather than be manufactured. It is what gives the Stoic his composure, the sage his gravity. A lion waits. A tree waits. Nature is never in a rush, and yet nothing is left undone. So why do we rush? Because we confuse movement with purpose. Because we fear we are only valuable when producing. But as Seneca said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Waiting well is not wasting. It is listening. It is discerning. It is trusting that the next season will come, not by force but by readiness. Try this. When you don't know what to do next, don't. Not yet. Don't fill the space just because it feels empty. Let the silence mature into insight. Let the next calling reveal itself, not through hustle but through stillness. Because the best directions don't come from the noise. They come from the quiet voice beneath it all, the voice that does not shout but knows. And when that voice finally speaks, you'll be ready. Not because you forced your way forward, but because you waited with honor. Because you trusted the logos. Because you remembered who you are even when no one was watching. In the end, the still path is not a path of passivity, it is a path of precision. It is walked by those who know that rushing ahead isn't the same as arriving, that performing isn't the same as living, that doing isn't the same as being. You are not here to chase. You are here to be, with clarity, with strength, with grace. Let others rush. You will wait, and in that waiting, you will become free. You've walked with me through silence, through pressure, through fear, through truth, not to become someone else, but to come back to who you've always been. In a world that tells you to be louder, you've chosen to go deeper. Where others chase the next goal, you chose to pause. Where the world demands more, you learned to need less. And in the stillness, you found something no one else can give you: yourself. Remember, you are not your titles, not your following, not your schedule, not your past or your plans. You are the breath that keeps moving even when the world stops. You are the presence that outlasts pressure. You are the quiet strength beneath the chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. So choose differently. Live intentionally. Walk slowly. Wait humbly. And when the next storm comes, as it will, stand firm, not because you're unshaken, but because you're rooted. You don't have to chase a life. You can receive it. This is the still path, and it doesn't end here. It begins every time you choose presence over pressure, purpose over performance, and being over doing. Thank you for walking with me.